Episode 15, Season 2. It's the Cup of Mets podcast. I'm Ian Bosniak, joined alongside Robert Venegas as always. Robbie, how we doing, brother?
Oh, good, man. Again, another day in paradise. 2 more weeks till the August 1st trade deadline, and a lot of questions for these New York Mets right now.
A lot of questions for these New York Mets, indeed. A lot of questions that not only we have, but the team probably has. And before we dive into all of that, remember to give us a follow on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, and we're launching soon TikTok. We are at Cup. Again, that is YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and soon to be TikTok. Also, be sure to give us a sub on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite podcast content. So last night was a wild series opener against the Chicago White Sox. Essentially, this is a series that's going to say it all about whether the Mets, I believe, are going to be sellers or not. Entering the game, they were 43-50, 8.5 games back of the wild card, and they had a pretty commanding lead for a while. We live streamed. It was our first live stream on our YouTube channel that we were watching.
That's fun.
And it was quite an opener. The Mets ended up winning 11-10, but it shouldn't have gotten that way. Rob, how did the game nearly get away from the Mets? I mean, I feel like I'm talking in circles. I feel like this happens all the time.
No, listen, I mean, story of 2023, the bullpen showing out like always, coming in with an 11-4 lead and then almost kind of blowing it, even to the last out in the last inning, with our best guy and David Robertson. But, the Mets bats came out to play yesterday, 5 runs in the first inning, 2 home runs from Francisco Alvarez. And after one of those home runs, Brett Beatty goes, yeah, the baby Mets showing out once again. And, again, when you put up 11 runs, you would think you could walk away with an easy victory, but not with the Mets this year in 2023.
I know it was it was going swiftly. The Mets had an 11-4 lead at one point, and then things really started to get away. Carrasco couldn't get out of the 5th inning. It ended up holding after the 5th. And it was 11-4, and then Grant Hartwig comes out for another inning after he retired, after he finished off the 6th inning, and he gives up 2 runs, strikes out 3, walks 1, gives up 1 hit. We're not really sure why he was left in there for another inning. But then Trevor Gott, who the Mets just got, was brought in. I believe he's being brought in these situations now to justify yet another Billy Epler trade. But he comes in, doesn't record an out, 3 hits, 3 runs, 2 of them earned, no walks, no strikeouts, obviously. His ERA has ballooned to 4.45 since becoming a New York Met. And then obviously, as you mentioned, David Robertson struggled there. If the Mets are going to have any chance of competing, I mean, the bullpen is going to be something that they're going to have to beef up at the deadline. It's brutal right now.
No, it's pretty bad. And aside from David Robertson, there's no one really to kind of bridge the gap, as we always talk about, and again, that's what Robertson was signed for this year. And unfortunately, until Edwin Diaz got knocked out in the WBC. But one big thing you didn't mention throughout those 3 straight hits that God gave up was a misplay by Brett Beatty. He elects to go to second to try to get the force out at second, and Tim Anderson's speed, he beats it out, and it kind of prolonged the inning. But I feel for the kid. He's having a really rough time playing third base. Every now and then, you see some flashes here and there, but then you see plays like against the Dodgers or even yesterday. And then one that we were at was a play against the Phillies when he double clutched that double play ball. And
what do you make of all this? Is it just maturation? Is it just like, hey, he's a rookie, he's raw, he doesn't?
I just think it's exactly. I just think it's, hey, he's a rookie. He's learning. Again, big league arm down in that hot corner, and again, big league bat when he's on. But again, defense is part of the game, and we definitely haven't had a formidable third baseman since David Wright. So that'd be nice to get him going in the offseason, Brett Beatty. And again, rookie mistakes are going to happen. And again, I feel like once he gets that full big league season, he'll mature, and he'll obviously be locked down over there.
And somebody that did make an appearance last night as well, recorded 2 big outs, did walk about her. Of course, no one made it easy last night. But Brooks Raley, his ERA lowered to 2.14 on the season. He's really having a great year, and he's somebody that a lot of people are talking about as the Mets potentially could be looking to trade. He is under contract for next year at $6.5 million. Given the Mets' current bullpen, they have Diaz lined up for next year, Ottavino as well. Robertson's going to be a free agent, could be traded at the deadline as well. I think I've changed my tune all of a sudden on Brooks Raley, while we're on the topic of it. And I know that we'll touch upon the deadline as well, but I think I've changed my tune a little bit on Brooks Raley. At first, I was kind of, yeah, let's listen out, considering he's under contract next year. A lot of teams want a lefty that can not only get lefties out, but righties as well. But all of a sudden, I think I'm changing tunes. I think I wanna hold Brooks.
Well, yeah, no, I mean he's been very good this year. And again, you said his ERA lowered once again, and he walked one guy to come out the pen last night, and then he got out of it. But whether it's against lefties or righties, he's been able to get people out with his sweeper and his changeup. And again, for someone that's owed 6.5 next year, I'm okay with keeping him and making him our lefty out of the pen. Again, we talked about this last night watching the game. I would definitely like another lefty next year, whether it's in the farm system or David Peterson or somebody out in the market. But again, looking at the free agent relief pitchers next year, there are options, and again, a guy like Raley who has another year left, I would keep him in just addition, especially with the bullpen. I want to see a lot of new faces next year.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the bullpen, it's Diaz for next year so far. For me, it's Diaz, it's Raley. I like Grant Hartwig. I think his stuff will stick despite his rough outing last night. He shouldn't have come in for another inning. Those three. And then Trevor Gott is under team control.
And Ottavino.
And Ottavino, yeah.
He has a player option, so we'll see.
Yeah, we definitely need some new faces.
But again, there's some interesting names in here. Again, if I were the Mets, I'd probably look at Chafin and Chapman.
Chafin, really?
Josh Hader is a free agent next year.
Chapin, Andrew Chapin.
Yeah. Again, Jordan Hicks, Daniel Hudson, Craig Kimbrell, Lugo, Matt Moore. I don't know about Matt Moore, but there are a lot of options next year.
Matt Moore, I think, is having a
couple sexy names here and there, but again, in order to be successful in this league, you gotta have pitching, and you gotta have guys that are going to get you their best closer, and that's again, that's not us right now. So
yeah, couldn't agree more. Cookie Carrasco did start the game. He went 4 2/3 of an inning. Allowed 6 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks. As we mentioned earlier, couldn't get through the 5th. He did allow a home run as well. His ERA is lowered to 5.35 on the season. He's really pitched much better over his last several starts, especially his last game against Arizona, where he threw 8 shutout innings, didn't allow a run, walked 1 and struck out 4. And then even before, he's just been throwing quality innings, right? 5 innings, 2 runs allowed against San Francisco. What do you make of Cookie Carrasco last night? It looked like he had a ton more on his slider early on, inducing a lot of swing and misses. And then all of a sudden it kind of tailed out there at the end.
No, yeah, and again, you mentioned his start in Arizona where he went 8 shutout innings. The first 2 innings when we were watching Cookie pitch last night, we were kind of hyping him up, and it kind of had that vibe of another 7, 8 shutout innings for Cookie Carrasco. He has been looking better lately. He's getting his swing and misses. He's getting his swings and misses. He's locating all his pitches in terms of the split and the slider. Again, the slider was working the first 2 innings, and then as he got through, second, third time around in the order, they were laying off him. Then he forces them to throw it right down the middle or try to throw it first strike, outside corner, and it hangs. And again, he just got beat up in that third, fourth inning a little bit, and going into the 5th, again, just couldn't induce those swing and misses like he was earlier on in the game.
And he was really racking up the swing and misses, and not only on that, as you mentioned, not only on the slider, not only on the changeup and the split finger, but even the fastball. The fastball had some giddy up. He was throwing pretty hard. He was throwing 95. So again, Cookie is a work in progress. while I do have it up here, he did induce 14 swing and misses last night, which led the game in terms of pitchers. So that is something to note when it comes to Carlos Carrasco. So, Rob, you mentioned earlier Francisco Alvarez hit 2 more home runs. He's now got 19 on the season.
He's legit.
He's legit. He's catapulting himself right into the National League Rookie of the Year award conversation. Yeah. Now in just 69 games, he's got 19 home runs. He is hitting 242 with a 303 on base percentage, slugging 534, has been worth 2.2 WAR again just in 69 games as a rookie and just 238 plate appearances. I mean, last night, the 2 home runs, he also walked twice. It was he's the 7th player ever to record a 2 home run, 2 walk game, age 22 and under. His 19 home runs leads all catchers. His defense is way above average. Mm-hmm. What is he our player that we've finally developed? And is he like, is like everyone's saying like, oh, why can't we develop an Ellie De La Cruz? Francisco Alvarez is fucking nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about development. We've been stressing the catcher position for quite some time now. And the fact that we got him in terms of a prospect that has come through our system at a young age and has, not only taken the Mets by storm, but making his case for Rookie of the Year. Again, 19 home runs, like you mentioned. Defense has improved. He's basically took over the starting catching position for the Mets. I mentioned it yesterday when we were on live that he caught 10 straight games before Narvaez made that start. And again, Narvaez is another trade candidate. We'll get into that. But again, I'm looking at DraftKings right now. Francisco Alvarez is plus 4,000 to win Rookie of the Year. I do think he gets some votes. It's going to be tough, and I know Corbin Carroll's injured, so that might make a little bit of a case between him or Ellie De La Cruz. But even Senga, man, Senga is a good bet, plus 5,000 on DraftKings. Yep. The Mets got a nice little nucleus that they could look forward to, definitely.
That they do, and the funny thing is that he went through a little rut. Right. And then he said it was a little adjustment that he had to make with one of his feet in the box. Over his last 7 games, 4 home runs, 9 ribbies, hitting .417. Over his last 15 games, again, today's July 19th.
Yeah.
Today's July 19th. And as Rob said, he's taken over the starting catching duties full time, making Narvaez expendable. Over his last 15 games, just in the month of July, he's hit 7 home runs, driven in 14 home runs, and has hit 306 while getting on base at a 382 clip and is slugging .735.
Nice.
Those are insane numbers. Those are Albert Pujols rookie numbers. Those are, I mean, those clips I'm mentioning, but like,
yeah, no, definitely.
That is the absolute legit of legit. And as you mentioned, Corbin Carroll getting injured potentially could push Alvarez into the conversation. Do you have anyone in particular that you're looking into as far as rookie of the year?
The sexy pick is Ellie De La Cruz, and he has given the Reds an opportunity to compete for the postseason this year. And he's just an exciting player overall. Again, I don't want to be biased. I do think Alvarez gets some votes, like I said, but in reality, especially if the Reds make the playoffs, I think Ellie De La Cruz is my rookie of the year.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's so many different directions that you can go. Do you have a top 5?
Top 5?
Top 5?
Like rookie of the year?
Yeah.
All right. Ellie De La Cruz is 1. Alvarez is 2. Corbin Carroll 3. Matt McClain 4, and then Senga 5.
Those are my 5 in a row, except I think hot take, Francisco Alvarez is going to win the rookie of the year. Because I think he's on that kind of pace. And he's making catching history. And he's also making history for players under the age of 22, being a 21-year-old catcher. He's being linked to the names of the likes of Johnny Bench and Mike Piazza. So There's no way in hell that, to me, Ellie De La Cruz, obviously incredible player, tremendous talent, five tools. He hasn't been up in the bigs as long as Francisco Alvarez has this season. So I don't know if that factors into it. But again, as you said, the Reds are vying for a playoff spot and they're in a better position right now. For me, I had Alvarez, Ellie, Corbin Carroll, Kodai Senga 4, and then Matt McLean 5, only because I bet the writers are going to want to mix in a pitcher in there somewhere as well. Again, we mentioned Francisco Alvarez had a wild night last night. The offense exploded for 11 runs, but couldn't just be one player. Everybody contributed for the most part. Jeff McNeil broke out finally. He went 2 for 5 with 2 ribbies. He's been struggling mightily, hitting under 200 for much of the last 2 months or so. His StatCast page looks abysmal. He looks like a player that does not belong in the major leagues. He only has a positive rating in the whiff percentage and the K percentage, meaning that he just does not strike out and he doesn't swing at bad pitches. Other than that, he's within the 12th percentile in average exit velocity, 11th percentile in hard hit percentage, the 2nd percentile in batting percentage. His walk percentage is even down to the 32nd percentile. Obviously, Jeff McNeil's been kind of an enigma. I think I pointed it out. I mean, you called me a hitting coach. I know that you were being sarcastic, but I see a big change in his stance between 2022. He reminds me more of the 2021 Jeff McNeil, a little bit more upright, a little bit closer to the plate. Whereas last year you kind of saw him with a variation of different at bats. He was a little bit more hunched over, a little bit further away from the plate and able to spray the ball all opposite sides of the field. But again, if the Mets are going to be successful, they're going to need to see McNeil do what he did last night and produce the way he does. What do you think he has to do to ultimately kind of turn last night into a thing that moves forward with him for the remainder of the season so that the Mets can kind of put themselves in a good position?
I mean, just again, it's easier said than done. Coming off a batting title, obviously high expectations, especially signing that extension in the beginning of the offseason. But again, just trying to do what's best for the team in terms of just putting the ball in play. Hitting it where it's pitched. If you get fooled, just try to spray it or try to hit it where it's pitched, opposed to just trying to pull everything. Again, Jeff's at his best when he just kind of like pokes the ball and puts it in play and uses his speed to his advantage. Again, last night, not only with Jeff, but you've seen it with the rest of the Mets lineup that they weren't really chasing as much, as a team. Again, strikeouts are going to happen, but when you're facing a guy like Lucas Giolito and you're laying off tough 2-strike pitches, eventually as a pitcher, you're going to have to come in, you're going to have to come in the zone. And that's when the Mets were ready to hit. And they did. So, again, Jeff, he's very passionate and obviously he wants to get this thing going because whenever he gets out, he has like a little meltdown. But again, when he sprays the ball to left field and just hits for contact, that's when the Mets are at their best. And that's when the offense gets going. I'm not sure if you saw last night, though. He was kind of grimacing for multiple innings. I don't know if he'll be in the lineup tonight.
But they just released the lineup, and it is Brandon Nimmo leading off, playing center, Tommy Pham left, Francisco Lindor batting third at short, Alonso at first. McNeil is in right field, so Marte is out of the lineup again. He is dealing with his abdominal. He's still having issues from that offseason surgery.
It's like lingering pain.
Yeah, Alvarez is batting 6th and catching. Vogelbach is DHing and batting 7th. Beatty is batting 8th and playing third base, and batting 9th is Luis Guillorme playing second base. So there's your lineup right there. So hopefully, but again, I did see that as well. Hopefully that is nothing, because that would be just what the Mets need, is another injury.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably force their hand to call someone up, but who knows if they'll be ready to give him outfield reps. Again, I heard Abraham Almonte was kind of tearing it up in AAA, and he's another name that kind of tore it up in spring training. But with MLB experience, if they don't want to call up Ronnie, but whatever.
What I think that they should do is I think that they should put Starling Marte on the DL. Or wow, the DL. I'm going back a few years. The IL, And then I think that
Mhm.
they should put Jeff McNeil in right and call up Ronnie Mauricio and have him play second. And you
That
said,
that would be the competitive stamp, like the competitive.
and you said it last night. You said it last night that
Yeah,
the Mets could potentially, even if they trade off a piece or two, they could call up Ronnie Mauricio and some of these kids, kind of like the Yankees did in 2016 when the Yankees failed to make the playoffs. Um, and they just fell short of the playoffs. But then they started calling up Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge, and they started getting really competitive towards the end of the season. Again, the Mets still do have a chance, theoretically speaking, right?
Judge
So
was.
yeah, percentage wise, we're 8 games out of a wild card spot. NL East is a pipe dream. But at this point, you gotta consider different things, and especially now that we see Marte out of the lineup again, the topic of McNeil. Again, McNeil's had a crappy season, but I think that we can all agree that we're extremely, extremely happy that he can play so many different positions and is such a utility player. He's such a like a Ben Zobrist type of guy.
Yeah,
Um, So, it's good flexibility, and hopefully Mauricio gets that call instead of Abraham Almonte, because that
yeah,
would
no, definitely.
that would piss me off. From one player who seems to maybe be figuring it out to another who is completely lost at the plate, Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso continues to be a question mark for the Mets. There was talk of a potential trade. I know I've brought that up. The Mets have nixed that. He's not going to be dealt. With that said, since we've last spoken, which was only a couple days ago, he's now down to 205 on the season with a 305 on base percentage. He's only slugging 479. All would be career lows. The 205 average is in the Kyle Schwarber, Dave Kingman type area. What do you think has and he went over 3 again. I mean, he got a sack fly and he walked last night, but what do you think can drop a guy's average 70 percentage points within one single season? Like this is nearly 70 points. I mean, this is I
From
mean,
last year to this year, you talking about?
yeah, and he's a
All right, yeah.
253 career hitter, so
Sounds worse when you say
so
that.
it's a big deviation.
Nah, it is. But again, last year he didn't get hit in the wrist by Charlie Morton. So again, you got to also factor in that. Coming in from a wrist injury, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But just seeing him play yesterday, he's swinging over a lot of stuff that he normally hits. I feel like he's trying to pull the ball a little bit more than he should. When there are pitches that are middle away that he drives out of the ballpark or just drives into the gaps for doubles. He's not going. He's not doing that anymore. Again, a lot of swings and misses, a lot of chasing. Um, again, I'm not a MLB hitting coach, but as a fan, I think you're just trying to do a little too much. Let them come to you. Let them challenge you. If they want to throw you some bullshit, then try to foul it off and fight. But again, a lot of swings and misses from Mr. Alonso, and just trying to do too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you know, he is currently batting average and balls put in play. He is batting 182, which is the lowest in the major leagues. So reports have claimed, as we have all figured, if the Mets turn out to be sellers, they're going to be looking to trade or move the likes of Tommy Pham, Omar Narvaez, Mark Canna, and David Robertson. Again, the Mets currently sit at 44-50. They are 8 games out of a wild card spot. They currently need to jump 3 other teams even to be within the 3 that are currently slated to be the wild card teams. Currently, those are the Giants, Diamondbacks, and Phillies. And the Mets are tied with the Cubs at 44-50. They would then need to hop the Padres, the Reds, the Marlins, and then obviously those other 3 teams. But just to get into the hunt, where do you currently stand? Buy, sell? Are you currently holding? You want to see how the next week plays out? You want to talk next time? What is it?
Yeah, I'm talking next time because again, there's still 2 weeks left, a lot of games. Again, we spoke about the run in 2016 when they were 16-62, but and by the end of August, and they need to make a little push. I'm not saying that's going to happen. What I'm saying is I'm just going to wait till these 2 weeks happen. Let's see if we can hopefully, again, I'm not gonna say what I want to say because I don't want to jinx anybody. But let's just say if we're competitive enough to stay afloat, gain some ground, and we'll go from there. Again, I spoke about it last night individually with you, Ian. That again, if we're making a little bit of a push here, string out a few wins, but we haven't gained any ground, then I think we have to evaluate as a ball club and see what our players can get us. But at the same time, if we gain some ground along with put together a few wins here, then I guess you got to consider yourself a buyer, right?
I'm with you 100%. I am currently idle in my answer until next week's show.
Yeah.
Because
We'll
if
see
the
how we feel
Mets,
after Boston.
yeah, because if the Mets take the next two against the White Sox, let's say, go to Fenway, win that series, and then we have that off day on Monday when we're going to record probably again. The different thoughts may pop up. So I guess we'll kind of see there. I'm on board with those four players. I wanted to ask you quickly. You had mentioned last episode, and we had spoken about it, that Max Scherzer probably is a trade candidate if the Mets are sellers. He does have the player option for next year, $43 million, that he will most likely opt into, considering the season that he's having. Despite, he had a great outing his last start, he's just been very up and down this season. 3.99 ERA, 4.43 FIP. He's only been worth 1.1 WAR in 17 starts. You mentioned that you would probably move Max Scherzer. Has your stance changed at all if the Mets are sellers, or would you still look to move him?
No, yeah, again, I would still look to move him. Again, you got to get an offer that blows you away a little bit in terms of, farm system and what's going to help you in the long run. Again, if they can't find obviously somebody or an offer that they don't, that can't refuse, then you go into 2024 with, just one, I guess one or two spots open in the rotation opposed to three or four.
I think that I was on board, obviously,
Mhm.
for quite some time with saying that Scherzer
Yeah.
should be a casualty if the Mets decide to sell, because it makes sense, right? If the Mets could get 2, 3 prospects and the Mets are willing to eat the money, he's a
Mm-hmm.
game changer if he goes to a team that's ready to win and that's
Mm-hmm.
vying for a playoff spot. But as I start to think about it, when I watch Justin Verlander, who I'm heading to the stadium tonight to go see pitch, when I watch Justin Verlander, he still has bite on his pitches, and I still think that he may have been taxed a lot last year in his first year back from Tommy John, and I do
Yeah.
think he still has a lot left in the tank. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're coming to next season with Justin Verlander and Kodai Senga, as you mentioned, unless the Mets are taken back by an offer where a team needs a starter, they love Scherzer, they know his resume, they expect him to be who he is and who he has been in maybe half of his games this year, because he's either been really, really dominant, good, or he's been really bad. Um, you know, I think that there's a case to be made that the Mets should retain him, right? Let him play out the player option next year. And the Mets do, as you say, go in with less question marks in the rotation than initially thought of. And then we also have Jose Quintana under contract as well, who I totally forgot about. So if they retain Scherzer, they would have Scherzer, Verlander, Quintana, and Senga,
Yeah.
the rotation. And then obviously
Opposed
some
to just having Senga and Quintana potentially.
or Verlander. Yeah, and people want to trade Verlander as well. And I'm like, there's no reason to move
Yeah.
Verlander. There's no reason to move Verlander
Yeah.
whatsoever.
But again, to rebuttal, not even a rebuttal, but to just give you a nice little something about Justin Verlander. He's 22-14 with a 3.72 ERA and 283 strikeouts and 47 appearances against the White Sox in his career. So would you bet him going more than 6 tonight? Yes or no?
Yes, because I think the Mets are going to go on a run.
I bet. So
I think,
I'm gonna do the over on his outs recorded.
yeah, do that. I'm telling you, the boys are going to tug. The boys are going to tug. They're going to tug at all of our heartstrings. They're going to get us all really ramped up, and they could end up having the Mets, buy a piece or two, and then they'll play out August and September, and we'll see if they either can make it or break
Yeah,
us.
hopefully. Again, baseball's a marathon, not a sprint. And again, I personally think they're gonna trade one or two bench guys, and then they're gonna let the kids play, and the Mets make a run. That's my storyline.
So as we wrap up episode 15 of season 2 here on July 19th, we just look ahead. Obviously, the Mets took the first game, the opener against the Chicago White Sox last night. They will face Chicago again tonight and tomorrow. It'll be Justin Verlander tonight against Touki Toussaint. Tomorrow afternoon, as mentioned, it'll be Jose Quintana taking on Michael Kopech. And then the Mets head to Boston for 3. It'll be Senga and Paxton on Friday evening. Mr. Crawford will pitch for the Red Sox on Saturday, to be determined for the Mets on both Sunday. Obviously, Scherzer will get a start in there. And then the Mets have an off day next Monday. And then we see the Yankees again for 2 more. Side note, Rob and I will be in Boston starting on Friday. We will be there for game 1, potentially game 2 as well. It'll be Rob's first time at Fenway Park. Rob, what are you looking most forward to going to Fenway? I mean, I've been there twice I've been there for 2 games in 2006. So it's been a while for me as well, but what are you looking most forward to seeing?
The Green Monster, honestly, and just the history behind all of it. Again, I went to school in Massachusetts for 2 years, and I missed an opportunity to go to Fenway with my family. So this one's going to be a little bit special, more special or special in general. Again, like I said, the history, the Green Monster, the atmosphere. I want to see if Red Sox fans treat Mets fans like they would treat it. But other than that, just looking to have a good time and checking another one off my list of stadiums I visited.
Yeah. Listen, as long as we're not wearing pinstripes, the other pinstripes, we're straight in Boston. We're totally cool in Boston. And then we'll see how Friday night goes, and potentially we'll hit the game on Saturday. And then we'll be back at it again next week when the Mets come home. For Rob Venegas, I'm Ian Bosniak. Thank you very much for joining us again. Episode 15 is in the books.
Yes, sir.
Again, remember to subscribe to us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. We're at Cup of Mets. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And with that,
peace.
Good night, everybody.